I saw you have something in common with Jason. You have 4 kids.
I do.
And you're a dean and you're running a coaching business.
Mm-hmm.
How?
I think when you have 4 kids, you can do anything, right? Like you just can do a million, you can have a million balls in the air. And I think it's just started from, I was having this conversation the other day with my coworker and she's like, how did you do it? Cause she's a young mom and I'm, not a young mom anymore. And I was like, what? I just wanted it all. Like I didn't want to make any sacrifices. I wanted to get my PhD when I had an infant and a 2-year-old. So I had, kids during my PhD program, graduated with 4, started with 2, and I just want everything. I just want it all. And I'm pretty, when I put my mind to something, I can do it. And I like to be busy and I like creative outlets. So someday I'll slow down, but not for a while.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Like when you get to that many kids, like there's so much stuff going on. It's like, what's something else? Like you just kind of move stuff around
and then they get older. So mine are in their 20s. So they're adulting. So I'm like, I have all this extra time. I can start new businesses or, you just keep replacing things.
Right. Everybody has the same number of hours in the week, right? 168 hours. And so it's interesting how one can say, I want it all. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to get a PhD and have kids at the same time and do all this. And then others could use, I got pregnant or we're having kids and now I'm done with, I can't pursue that anymore. Right?
Exactly. And no judgment. I mean,
right.
Whatever you need to do to be happy and fulfilled in life, do it. I mean, I never judged my friends who wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That just wasn't for me. I tried it for a year and I was like, no, this is really too hard. I need to go to work, whatever works. Again.
Yeah. I feel like people will would they come up with the reasons to, I don't want to beat them up here, but it's like, it's easy as humans to, when an obstacle comes in the way, to use it as the excuse to not keep going forward and just blame instead of, it probably can be done because it has been done and you've proven that it can be done. So
I have to say that's kind of a frustration for me is when I have these super talented women and they have these goals and I know they can do them and I kind of give them the recipe for it and they're just I'll be like, did you do that one thing? No. I'm like, okay. I can't force people to do things. I can give them the tools, but if they don't want to do it, it's really hard to step back. And probably like a doctor, right? Like you tell your patients to eat healthy and don't smoke and don't abuse anything and they do it anyway. And you're like, well,
they're out at Vegas every weekend.
Yeah, I know what you need to do, but only you can do that. So that's hard for me. I have to be like, okay, not my life. This in her time, she'll do it.
Right. It's the action, right? It just requires the action. And I think a lot of times it's hard to just get the first foot past the obstacle and keep going.
Oh, motivation. I mean, every day you have to do something to stay motivated if you're going to have a business or work toward a new career goal or whatever that is, an email a day or LinkedIn, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One foot in front of the other every day.
Baby steps.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions about an insurance agency.
Yeah.
You have so much knowledge with coaching. And I mean, essentially that's what we do with our teams, right? And we try to get the best out of them for themselves, but for our agencies as well. Like, how do you create a workplace culture of acceptance and all the different viewpoints that you might have in an agency?
Interestingly, I have a little bit of knowledge of the insurance industry from a business perspective. And what I keep hearing over and over and over again is there's this power struggle almost between people. It's like this conflict resolution. What they're looking for, I think, is what I've heard actually from the ones that I've dealt with. And so, I think there's some skills and some tools that people can use if they're in a workplace with people that have different opinions and different objectives and different perspectives and biases. And so, in a nutshell, to me, what it comes down to is just being civil, kind people with one another. And I lately have been doing a lot of keynotes on civil discourse and what that's like in the organization. I mean, we've had a lot of things happen in the past 4 years. There's more big things happening that can divide people at work. We went through a contentious election almost 4 years ago. We went through a pandemic. We're about to enter another contentious election. And so things like politics and just social media and all these things get in the way of people's perspective and their, the way they treat other people. And so I think there's some things we can do and say dealing with communication and around communication.
What are some things that would help? Because it's definitely something that's needed. And I think you're right. Like there's been a lot going on, and it's almost like we've been trained to be more sensitive in a way too. Like it's almost like things can be taken incorrectly a lot. So now there's like multiple levels of problems that can arise between staff members and team members.
Oh, absolutely. Well, for instance, I like to tell my clients when I'm, coming in and doing consulting or coaching for organizations, we've heard of this idea of a safe space, right? Where, in higher ed, we'll put these little triangle rainbow stickers on our door, and that means safe space. Come in, it's safe. Like, I'm going to support you. Yes, everybody needs a support system, but what I like to talk about is a brave space. So I'll invite you into my safe space, but also I'm going to push you a little bit. I'm going to ask you things that might be uncomfortable because I want to have a dialogue with you. I want to see your perspective on something. A safe space is very polite, and we just like, oh yeah, you're right. But a brave space is like, tell me more about that. I want to know more. I don't agree with that, but I want to know where you're coming from so that we can then find common ground and meet in the middle, put our differences aside and still focus on the task at work, whatever that is, and then we have just knowing our own personal biases and knowing that, okay, I have a bias against this, but I can't let that get in the way. You are voting for this person, I'm voting for this person, but how can we put those differences aside and still come together? So again, it's that common ground, being open-minded, being tolerant, being respectful, supportive, again, being brave, being a really good listener.
Big word comes to my mind that starts with an E.
I can think of a lot of E words.
And it rhymes with sympathy.
Oh, does it rhyme or empathy?
Yeah. Right? Being empathetic.
I guess they rhyme a little bit.
Close enough. I mean, not for the dean's list, but yes. I mean, for me, it's close.
They rhyme in our world. Yeah.
We're in the insurance world. It's like fuzzy.
Right. Yeah. Empathy. Absolutely. And speaking of that, I was having another conversation the other day with somebody like this server was just really, really rude to me and they're not getting a good tip. And I said, have you ever asked the person, because I've done this, and I've said, you look really frustrated. Are you having a bad day? And I was not being a jerk about it. Like, I really wanted to know, like, what's going on? Because something's off right now with you. And it's like, now that you mention it, it's been a really bad day and this and this. And I'm like, and then he walked away and came back and he was a new person. So
event.
like being genuinely interested in people and what's going on in their world, because you never know what's happening that could be causing conflict in other aspects of their life.